Hey, beautiful, please consider subscribing to our channel if you've been enjoying these stories. Your support helps a lot. Aid us in reaching our goal of 1,000 subscribers.
The sun was just beginning to sink behind the rows of oak trees that lined the edge of the neighborhood pool. The sky turned a soft amber. The air smelled faintly of chlorine and sun-warmed pavement. Birdsong faded into the steady drone of cicadas. Water lapped gently against the tiled edge of the pool. Malik adjusted the strap on his work belt and knelt beside the pump housing. His hands moved with practiced ease as he checked the pH levels. He'd done this 100 times. A job no one noticed. Unless it wasn't done right, he liked it that way. Quiet, predictable, clean. He stood and stretched, rolled up the last umbrella, snapped the latch on the pool gate. He was alone. He liked this moment the most, the transition. The calm before darkness settled over the neighborhood. Then the sound of tires on gravel cut through the stillness. Malik turned. A white SUV rolled to a stop just outside the pool lot. The driver's side door flung open. A woman in oversized sunglasses stepped out with the clipped urgency of someone who expected to be obeyed. She marched toward the gate. Her voice rang sharp across the concrete. "Excuse me? What do you think you're doing here?" Malik blinked. She was maybe in her late 40s, athleisure outfit phone, in hand, face set in tight judgment. "Just closing up, ma'am. I work here." "That's funny because I've never seen you before and I've lived here 12 years. Malik pointed to his chest. His ID badge caught the last sliver of sunlight. "I'm with the HOA maintenance team. I do pool and park facilities, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays." Her lips curled. "That doesn't sound very official." Malik paused. He was used to skepticism, but there was something sharper in her tone, something rooted in something else. "Well, ma'am, if you have any questions, you can contact the board president, Mr. Jennings. He's the one who approved my schedule." She crossed her arms, glanced toward the now locked gate. "Why were you locking the gate before sunset?" "That's not standard protocol. It is during off-season, ma'am. And there was a vandalism issue last week. I was asked to lock up early until further notice." She pulled out her phone, tapped it quickly, then raised it to her ear. Malik tensed. He knew that look. That stance, the casual weaponization of concern. "Yes. Hi. I need to report a trespasser. He's a large black man. He's closing up our neighborhood pool, and he's acting aggressive. I don't feel safe." Malik's mouth went dry. He took a step back. Hands raised slightly, palms out. He wasn't aggressive, hadn't even raised his voice, but it didn't matter. Not to her, and maybe not to whoever answered that call, "Ma'am. I think you're making a mistake." She ignored him, kept her eyes fixed on the gate, kept her voice in that deliberate, frightened cadence, even as she turned her body just enough to make sure he was in the shot if she was filming. 2A screen door creaked nearby. Mrs. Delgado from Unit 9 stepped out onto her porch. She was old enough to be his grandmother, and one of the few people in the neighborhood who had ever bothered to learn his name. "Is there a problem, Malik?" He didn't speak, didn't need to. Mrs. Delgado looked at the woman with narrowed eyes. "He works for the HOA. He's been keeping this place cleaner than it's ever been." Karen, as she would soon be known, didn't even glance her way. "I'm just being cautious. There's been crime lately. I'm sure you understand." Mrs. Delgado shook her head. Slowly, "Some people just don't want to understand the truth." Blue lights flickered at the far end of the lot. 2 police cruisers rolled in slow and deliberate. Their presence shattered the fragile quiet like glass underfoot. Malik took 2 steps forward, then stopped. He kept his hands visible. No sudden movements. He had learned all the lessons they never should have had to teach him. The officers stepped out. One of them nodded as he approached. "Evening, sir. We got a call about a possible trespasser." Malik offered his ID before they could ask, spoke calm and clear. "I'm the HOA maintenance contractor. Been working here 4 months. This is my usual shift." The officer glanced at the ID, then looked up at Karen. Ma'am, this individual is on our authorized personnel list. He's not trespassing. Karen's tone flipped. Oh, well, you can't blame me for being careful. He didn't look like anyone I've seen before, and you never know these days. The second officer spoke softly, almost as if he didn't. Want her to hear? You're good, sir. Sorry to bother you again, Malik nodded. Didn't say much. Didn't need to. The tightness in his chest hadn't eased. Not yet. Karen turned, brushed invisible lint off her sleeve. Just doing my civic duty. She walked, away back to her SUV. Back to her world. Mrs. Delgado stayed quiet until the car pulled out. Then she reached over the fence, put her hand lightly on Malik's arm. You okay, baby? He nodded. But the silence that followed was heavier than any words. Looked around, the pool, the gate, the cameras. He thought of how many times he'd been there alone, how many times this could have gone worse. He closed his eyes, breathed deep. Later that night. He sat at his desk. The pool key sat next to his laptop. His hands hovered over the keyboard. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but something twisted in his gut told him this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. He typed her name. Found a public post she'd made in a neighborhood group. He read the words 3 times before leaning back in his chair. This community is going downhill and we need to be vigilant. I saw someone managing the pool today who didn't even look like he lived here. He stared at the screen, at the picture she had posted. Grainy zoomed in. It was him. A headline popped into his mind, but she had no idea what he found out. He opened a new folder, named it Karen Evidence, and started to save everything. His fingers trembled, but his eyes were clear. They always said the truth. Would set you free, but tonight it was going to burn someone else's house down instead. Malik stared at the screen as the digital clock ticked past midnight. His eyes burned from hours of scrolling. Each click pulled back another layer of curated perfection. Karen's social media was a scrapbook of superiority she stood in front of. Yoga studios tagged gourmet brunch spots, posted sunlit selfies with inspirational captions. But then came the darker side, the neighborhood group posts, the comments beneath local news articles, all laced with the same thread. We need to protect our community code for something unspoken, but deeply understood. Malik leaned back and exhaled. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was processing. Filing away each detail. She wanted him invisible. But now she had his full attention. The next day he arrived at the pool just after noon. The sun was bright. Children played in the shallow end. Laughter echoed off the pavement. He moved quietly, checked chlorine levels, skimmed the surface, adjusted the filter. A woman with a toddler on her hip waved from a lounge chair. Thanks for keeping it clean, Malik. You're a godsend. He smiled politely, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He watched the camera mounted above the gate, noted the angle, the coverage. If it recorded audio across the fence, a familiar white SUV pulled into the adjacent cul-de-sac. Karen stepped out, sunglasses perched like armor. She didn't see him at first. She marched toward the community bulletin board, clipped up a notice, smoothed it with both hands. He waited until she turned her eyes, widened when she saw him. You're still here. I work here, remember? She folded her arms. You don't need to be here during busy hours. It's disruptive. He tilted his head. The HOA bylaws say maintenance can happen any time between 7 and 7. Well, maybe that needs to change. A man with graying temples stepped between them. Afternoon, Malik. Problem here. Mr. Jennings wore boat shoes and a linen shirt. His handshake was firm, his tone light but direct. No problem, sir. Just doing my shift. Karen narrowed her eyes. Mr. Jennings, I really think we should revisit the security protocol. He raised a brow. Karen, we're lucky to have Malik. He's the only reason this place passed inspection last month, she faltered. I'm just saying it doesn't look professional having someone like him around when children are present. The air shifted. Even the kids' laughter seemed to dull. Mr. Jennings' smile disappeared. Someone like him? She blinked. I didn't mean it that way. He looked at Malik. Then, back at her, Karen. If I hear one more complaint like this, I'll be reporting it to the board for harassment. She turned bright red, muttered something under her breath, walked away fast. Her SUV door slammed hard enough to shake the frame. Malik packed. Up slowly, not because he had to, but because it gave him time to think. That night he opened the folder again. Karen evidence inside were screenshots, her complaint post, the video from the pool gate camera. He had requested a copy from the security vendor under his contractor access. It showed the moment she made the call, the way she angled the phone, the smug glance at the lens. He clipped the footage, spliced it with captions, added her post underneath. He didn't upload it. Not yet, but he watched it 3 times. The next morning, a letter arrived in his email, subject line performance review, pending. His stomach dropped. He clicked it open. A formal request from the HOA board to meet about recent complaints. Vague language, no specifics, but the implication was clear. He knew where this was coming from. Karen wasn't done. The meeting was held in the small rec center near the tennis courts. Malik sat alone on one side of a long plastic table. 3 board members sat opposite, Mr. Jennings included. Woman in the middle cleared her throat. Malik, we've received a few concerns about your conduct at the pool. What kind of concerns? She hesitated. Allegations of inappropriate presence during community hours and unsettling interactions with residents, Mr. Jennings leaned forward. Let's be clear, Malik. We know this is nonsense. I've reviewed your logs, but Karen has a way of stirring up trouble, and now other folks are echoing her tone. Malik nodded slowly. She's trying to get me fired, the woman on the left looked uncomfortable. She's persistent. He opened his laptop, pulled up the video, pressed play. The board watched silently. Karen's voice rang out over the footage. The false fear, the twisted narrative, the casual racism tucked inside. The call. When the clip ended, no one spoke for a long moment. Mr. Jennings leaned back. Would you be willing to go on record if we move this forward? Malik stared at the screen, then looked each of them in the eye. Yes, but I want more than a reprimand. I want accountability. The next few days passed with an eerie quiet. Karen didn't appear at the pool. No comments on the community board, no sightings of the white SUV. Then came the email from a burner account. No name, no signature, just a subject. Line, you don't belong here. Below it a single sentence, you'll be gone soon, one way or another. He forwarded it to Mr. Jennings, filed a report with the HOA security liaison. But something inside him had already shifted. This wasn't just about the pool. This was about the illusion of ownership, the invisible boundary Karen had drawn in her mind, and the way she tried to enforce it with fear. That night, he called his cousin Darren, a civil rights attorney in Atlanta, explained everything read. The email played the clip. Darren listened, then said, "You're not just dealing with one Karen. You're dealing with a system that thinks it can keep you quiet." What do I do? You expose it. All of it, but smart clean. Loud enough to echo. Malik nodded. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was done being polite. The next morning, he walked into the HOA office with a printed report, a timeline, screenshots, the video, the email, and a formal complaint of racial harassment. He handed it to the office manager, then turned and walked out. Sunlight poured down like a spotlight, and for the first time since this started, he smiled, because Karen didn't know it yet. But the story she thought she controlled was about to rewrite itself completely. The day the complaint landed on the HOA board's desk, everything shifted. Karen had spent the night scrolling through her phone, drinking coffee that had long gone cold. Her usual confident smirk was gone, replaced by a flicker of doubt. Her fingers tapped nervously against the counter. How had Malik turned the tables so quickly? She tried calling a few neighbors, texted the usual allies, but the responses were cautious, some even sympathetic toward Malik. Her empire of whispers was cracking, and the truth was spreading like wildfire. The HOA scheduled a special meeting, not the usual sleepy gathering with stale donuts and polite nods. This one was packed. More residents than she'd ever seen. Whispers filled the room, some curious, some angry, all waiting to see what would happen. Malik arrived early, calm and composed, dressed simply in a dark shirt and jeans. He carried nothing but a folder. Inside it was everything he needed to tell his story. No embellishments, just facts. The board president called the meeting to order, introduced the agenda. And then Malik stood, his voice steady but firm. I want to start by thanking everyone for coming today. This isn't just about me or the pool. It's about respect, safety, and the right to live without fear or discrimination. He clicked the remote. The projector flickered on images of Karen's posts, screenshots of her calls. The threatening email gasps rippled through the crowd. Malik's words carried weight. His calm authority made it clear this was not a petty dispute. It was a demand for justice. Karen sat stiffly at the back, her arms crossed, her eyes darting between Malik and the screen. She mouthed something, but no one heard. One neighbor stood up. I've seen the way Karen treats people. It's not right. She's made this neighborhood hostile for some of us. Another nodded. Thank you, Malik, for standing up. We've been afraid to speak out. The tension in the room thickened, but Malik pressed on. This is not about vengeance. It's about accountability. We all deserve a community where everyone feels safe. He closed his folder, sat down. The board president cleared her throat. Thank you, Malik. We will review this carefully, but Malik knew it was only the beginning. Karen wasn't. Done not by a long shot. In the days that followed, Karen ramped up her campaign, emails to the board, calls to neighbors, threats thinly veiled as concern. She spread rumors about Malik, claimed he was disruptive, dangerous even, but the community was listening differently. Now social media posts began supporting Malik neighbors, shared stories of their own encounters with Karen's hostility. The narrative was changing. Malik used the momentum, posted a carefully worded video on the neighborhood. Group, calm, sincere. He spoke about his experience, the harassment, his hope for healing. The video went viral in the community. Comments poured in, supportive messages, offers to help. Even local news reached out. Karen's phone buzzed nonstop. Calls she didn't answer, messages she ignored. She tried to keep control, but control was slipping through her fingers one afternoon. Malik received a call. It was from Darren, his cousin, the attorney. Malik, they want to take this public. There's enough evidence for a formal complaint with the city. Human Rights Commission. Malik's heart pounded. This was the moment, the tipping point. He agreed. Together they prepared documents, statements from neighbors, the video footage, emails and texts. The legal process began. Letters were sent. Investigators came. Karen was officially under scrutiny. The community watched closely. Some cheered, others worried about backlash, but Malik stayed steady, focused on the bigger picture. Then came the invitation to speak at a city council meeting. A chance to share his story in front of a wider audience, to demand change. The night of the meeting. Malik stood at the podium, lights shining down, faces staring up, cameras rolling. He spoke with clarity and passion about exclusion, and fear about courage and resilience. His words echoed through the chamber, ringing with truth. Karen sat near the back, her face pale. The room shifted. Support had clearly moved to Malik's side. When he finished, applause filled the room. Not just polite claps. But genuine, heartfelt support Karen left quietly, her world unraveling her power. Fading, Malik stepped down from the podium, feeling the weight lift. The road ahead was still long, but the tide was turning, because sometimes standing up is the hardest part, but it is also the most powerful. Karen's world was unraveling faster than she could imagine, her grip on the neighborhood slipping through her fingers. Every call, every email, every whisper was turning against her. She paced in her living room, her eyes wild, her breath shallow. How had Malik done this? How had one man turned the tide? Her pride burned, her anger simmered beneath the surface. She refused to be the villain in this story. But the city investigation was relentless. Neighbors who had once been silent now spoke openly, their voices joining Malik's chorus of truth. Karen's name became synonymous with hostility. The HOA board began distancing themselves. Her influence evaporated. One afternoon, she stormed into the community center, demanding a private meeting with the board. She stood there trembling with rage, her voice sharp and biting. "This is unfair. He's ruining my reputation. This neighborhood belongs to all of us, not just him." The board chair looked at her steadily. "We must consider all sides, Karen. But the evidence is clear. We cannot ignore the impact of your actions." Karen's fists clenched. Her eyes flicked to Malik, who stood calmly at the back. He met her gaze without fear, without hatred, just quiet strength. The room was thick with tension. It was a battle of wills, a fight not just for control, but for justice and dignity. Karen's mask cracked, her anger spilling over. "You think you can come here, take what's mine and win, but you don't know who I am." Malik stepped forward, his voice calm yet unwavering. "I know who you are, and so do the people here. This isn't about winning, it's about respect. About righting wrongs," the crowd murmured, their support shifting unmistakably. Toward Malik, in the weeks that followed, Karen's behavior grew desperate. She tried to rally a few holdouts, spread new rumors, but her words fell flat. Her allies dwindled, her credibility in ruins. Meanwhile, Malik focused on healing, organizing neighborhood events, inviting everyone to the pool once it was safe to reopen, building bridges where Karen had burned them. One morning, Malik received an unexpected visitor. It was a local journalist. She wanted to cover his story, to highlight the fight against discrimination and the power of community. The article ran widely. The video of Malik's speech, shared thousands of times, he became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that one voice can spark change. Karen watched it all. Her bitterness turned to resignation. She realized the battle was lost, not just the fight for the pool, but for the respect and kindness that Malik had earned. The climax came one sunny afternoon. The community gathered for the pool reopening, banners flew, children laughed, neighbors shared food and stories. Karen appeared at the edge of the crowd, her expression unreadable. She stood alone, watching as Malik led the festivities. Then Malik walked over to her, extended a hand, a gesture of peace. Karen hesitated, then slowly took it. The crowd held its breath, a moment of true reckoning. Two people divided by hate, finding a fragile truce. Malik smiled warmly. "We all deserve a place where we feel safe, where respect is the rule, not fear." Karen nodded, her voice soft. "Maybe I have a lot to learn." The community erupted in applause. Not for the past grievances, but for the promise of something better. Malik looked out over the crowd, feeling hope bloom. Justice had been served, not through revenge, but through truth and courage, as the sun dipped low. The neighborhood felt alive again, a place reborn from conflict, stronger and more united. And somewhere in the back, a small phone camera recorded it all, the moment going viral, a final twist of fate. turning Karen's downfall into a lesson. For all, because sometimes the greatest victory is not in defeating your enemy, but in rising above and inviting them to change.